Oh, that was a bit abrupt, wasn't it? Never mind. All sorts of things happen on a Friday morning, not least of which is we've lost our light, and I can't find Shannon. She was here an ungodly hour this morning. When I got here, the place was ablaze, everything was ready, but I haven't got my little light. So we'll, if you don't mind looking at me a bit in the dark at the moment, and we'll see what we can do in a moment or two. Is one thing I was going to do was to oh well, never mind. That will do. I think what we'll do is we'll take a look at the date. First of all, it's Friday the 7th of October, 2022. Yes, a year to be marked in living memory. My God, if it didn't happen today, it happened tomorrow. And looks as if it will happen all the way up to the end of the year. So where are we at the moment with the newspaper headlines? First of all, the UK is warned of blackouts in a winter of discontent. Oh, dearie, dearie, dearie me. The Metro is the first newspaper to come under examination, and it says a winter of discontent. National Grid has warned that the UK faces blackouts due to the ongoing energy crisis. The Metro reports that homes and businesses could face power cuts lasting 3 hours a day this winter. The paper says the UK could be facing a winter of discontent with electricity rationing during peak times if the gas supply crisis in Europe escalates. Well, I have to say that I've lived in those circumstances. I was in Kosovo in 2000, 2001, 2002. We had 3 hours on and 4 hours off with electricity and hot water and all sorts of other things. And you learn to live with it very easily. And you would go out to dinner and suddenly the lights in the restaurant would go out. And the generators would kick in, and it was known as the Pristina Symphony. And you got light back on again, and away you went for until such time as the power grid kicked back in. The only thing is that if you wanted to pee in the middle of the night, is you had to fumble a bit because you would switch the light on and there was no electricity. And once in a while, I would cut my throat trying to shave in the dark. But other than that, we are fine. We're fine. I think we're fine. Anyway, just thinking back to those days, the Daily Telegraph it's much the same. The UK warned it could face a winter of blackouts, and its take on the situation is we need to import gas from continental Europe to meet demand in the event of a cold winter. The supplies could be put at risk because of the ongoing war in Ukraine. Prime Minister Liz Truss, in Prague at a meeting with European leaders, insisted Britain had a good supply and in a much better position than many other countries, though she refused to guarantee blackouts would be avoided. Well, there you are. Put a good spin on it. Electricity blackout warning this winter, says the Eye. The UK faces rolling blackouts. Enough energy from Europe, a national grid warns, and millions of homes would have electricity cut for 3 hours at a time in the worst case scenario. Now, what is saying suddenly, yes, well, this is the worst case scenario. But the Eye says that any implementation of power cuts in the UK would need approval from King Charles and the government under current legislation. The paper adds it is unlikely that the UK will face its first blackouts since the 1970s unless there is a cold snap, no gas imports, and too little wind. Oh dear, what a combination. The Mirror. And it says, look who is back. And it's talking about, I think, Kate Bush. I think so. Yeah, I'm sure it says. It's one person I recognise because I'm a great fan. Return to the Dark Ages, says the Mirror. Oh, trust refusing to act as we lurch towards 1970s style power shortages. The Daily Mirror says measures which have been implemented. So I got the hiccups. Implemented in the UK this winter as they return to the Dark Ages. Labour said the crisis was a direct consequence of Tory policies. Well, there we go. Is we're going to lose light and heat because of Tory policies. This is I've just put up a blog today saying I'm fed up with all this garbage that comes out of politicians. Times have changed. We face crises on a daily basis. I don't want to hear this BS from either side. I want to hear what they're doing about it and what they would do about it. Not, look what he did, they did this, they did that. That serves no useful purpose right now. We're up against it, and we need now all the good minds that we've got, none of which I think are either in either party. No, we don't have any good minds in Parliament anymore. We really don't. I'm sorry. I've tried to be generous, but I can't be. They're full of 650 idiots, and we're not going to get much better. The Guardian, rolling power cuts could put lives at risk, the charities tell the National Grid. Well, the charities are always saying that. How true is it? There's a warning from charities. The thousands of people who use life-saving machines at home could be endangered by rolling power cuts. A director for Kidney Care UK is quoted as saying that if people on dialysis miss too many sessions in a row as a result of any interruption to power supply, their lives will be at risk. Well, so that's true. What do we do about it? Well, the Daily Mail. Blackout deal sparks a storm. Families are offered £10 a day to help avert power cuts, but they must have a smart meter and let appliances run at night. It's so typical, isn't it? That's so typical. The civil service and civil servants getting into the act who have not the slightest idea what it is like to live on a day-to-day basis. They live in the same bubble as their masters. That's another clear out we can do with civil service. Yes, sir. Could we ever? Yeah, that's the Mail. The Daily Express. Oh, excuse me. It's Friday, isn't it? TGIF. Right. Homes face 3-hour winter power cuts. The Express suggests the deal between firms and consumers being asked to switch their energy off at peak times could be worth around £100 this winter. Energy firms looking to avoid the first planned power cuts in decades are asking people to save money and back Britain by only using washing machines or electric charging vehicles outside the hours of highest demand. And the Daily Star. New advice to stop Blackout Britain. Wash your grundies at midnight. It's got a picture of a clothesline with some knickers on it. Do chores at bedtime or face 3-hour power cuts. The warning from the National Grid also makes the Daily Star front page. The paper says energy bosses will pay consumers to wash clothes in the early hours in order to prevent the Great British Blackout. Good for the Star. It really does find its gas import threats put UK at risk of blackouts. How to win a countdown. Right. The Times story on the blackout threat reports that Downing Street has rejected plans signed off by Business Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg for a £15 million public information campaign to encourage people to save energy. The Times also carries a story on its front page about the PM's meeting with French President Macron during the summit in Prague. The Financial Times. The Bank of England says the UK was on the brink of crisis after market turmoil. Yes, sir. And Away from the energy crisis, the Financial Times reports on the economic fallout from the government's mini budget. It highlights a Bank of England statement that its intervention in the UK government debt market last week prevented a £50 billion fire sale of gilts that would have taken the country to the brink of a financial crisis. The Sun, strictly snogger Sean, or Sian, sorry, signs up for ITV Jungle. I'm a celebrity, who cares? That's more or less it. The Sun, it becomes more and more irrelevant every day. But I mean, it's gone from an interesting paper with its famous page 3 down to something which really is a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of rubbish. There we go. Let's not get too excited about that, shall we? It's 8:45, and this morning we are not necessarily expecting rain, and in fact, there's a bit of sun at the moment. We are expecting sunny spells, a fairly stiff breeze, though, and that is going to cover most of the day. With a chance of rain somewhere around a little after lunchtime, I think. Yes, a little after lunchtime is the biggest chance. The biggest chance of us getting getting rained on. Yes, I'm looking at too many things at once at the moment. Let's. I think. Oh yes, here now. This I love because when I was abroad, particularly, and we saw EU people or people from the United Nations, we would play this. We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time. Well, is just looking around at other bits and pieces of news is one of the most controversial, I think, is that the UK is now going to offer new oil and gas licenses, despite the fact that these fossil fuels contribute to global warming. So it's amazing, isn't it, when we hit a bit of a crisis, how willing we are to throw our principles into the sea. It's a bit disturbing that we would take that route. There we are. We can't do much about it. It's once again government. Liz Truss and Emmanuel Macron of France, the president of France, having a little bit of a love affair. Now, I don't mean that in any sexual sense. What I mean is two leaders, they've started to agree. And it's the first time that we've agreed with France in about 200 years, I think. Is that to our advantage or not? Who knows? The train company Avanti has been told to drastically improve its rail services. Otherwise, its franchise will disappear. Let's see. What else is up in the news? Well, not a hell of a lot. The only thing is that there is some considerable concern now about whether President Putin is willing to use nuclear weapons or not. And of course, that is a big fear, because if he does, he'll stoke the first nuclear war that we've had since Tokyo was bombed. And who knows what would happen then? Perhaps everything will be irrelevant to us. Perhaps we'll destroy the planet. Who knows? Who knows? So that's the way it stands at this particular time. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to go and take a look. I think we are anyway. At another episode in our series, in our documentary series, which won great acclaim 2 or 3 years ago, and we've been showing episodes since. So I think we got to episode 6 yesterday. So it might be nice to see episode 7 today, and here it is.
In the centre of Lewes is a war memorial, a monument to the dead of 2 world wars. It's the centre of the huge bonfire celebrations in Lewes on November the 5th. And of course, Remembrance Day services at various times of the year. But it also sits in the middle of an old square, which was surrounded by inns and hotels, the centre of social life in the town over almost 6 centuries. The White Hart we already talked about, but the Crown and the Star both have fascinating histories. The Star Inn was a luxurious hotel used by royalty and gentry from the 14th century, when it was an inn owned by the Southover Priory. Parts of it are still there, disguised now as Lewes Town Hall. The inn was originally used to shelter pilgrims travelling to either Canterbury or Chichester, but it soon outgrew its clientele, and especially after the priory was torn down. In the 16th century, it started to get a reputation for its fine cuisine. By the mid-1600s, bishops and poets were praising it for its food and wine. There was, of course, the Black Spot in the time of Queen Anne, when the cellars were used as dungeons to hold some of the martyrs as prisoners as they waited to be burned at the stake. By the mid-1700s, it was the scene of social gaiety. A monthly supper and ball were held each month throughout the winter, and the Prince Regent used it to hold dinner parties after attending the Lewes races. It is also said the Prince used it for other purposes, meeting young ladies there incognito, presumably for affairs of the heart. In the late 1800s, its clientele had changed, and it was the farm owners who held sway. Their weekly market luncheons were used for heavy social activity until eventually the premises were bought by Lewes Council. They turned it into a town hall late in the 19th century, and this it still is. But the changes have been considerable, and the present town hall is barely recognisable from the outside as the great inn which housed the social elite of Lewes. But the town hall is still a centre of social life, used for parties and dinner dances, and important civic events, such as the exhibition featuring the Rodin statue, The Kiss. Once banned from Lewes, but welcomed back with open arms for a brief stay. The Crown Hotel is almost next door and is still extant. Although it has struggled recently to achieve former glories, it was built in the reign of Charles I and was originally called the Black Lion. It changed its name to the Crown in 1790, and the Crown it has remained until this day. In its better years, it received visits from royalty, King George IV, and there is no suggestion that he was with a young lady. There's a little bit of modern history, though, to add to the Crown. When I first came to Lewes, there was a chap called Tony Burton here who befriended me. Tony took out the tenancy of the Crown Inn after a life of travelling around the world. He installed a grand piano in the bar area and played it to laughter and gaiety throughout the 80s, and he attracted a whole range of entertainers to join him. Those glory days have gone. Ownership of the Star Inn and of many properties around Lewes showed the power and the wealth of the Priory. When Henry VIII had the Priory pulled down, his hatchet man, Thomas Cromwell, grabbed a mansion house nearby, which had been owned by the Priory. But he didn't own it until his power had started to slip. Anne of Cleves led to the downfall of Thomas Cromwell from almost unprecedented heights of power. He was the king's favourite, and why not? He'd masterminded Henry's break with Rome. But he also masterminded his marriage to Anne. She turned out to be anything other than a beauty, and Henry never forgave his friend for arranging the marriage. The king had the marriage annulled after 6 months, on the grounds it had not been consummated. Anne's looks are historically the reason given for why the king couldn't make love to her. Cromwell took the blame, and as he slipped from power, his enemies closed in. He was eventually imprisoned in the Tower and beheaded. He added, in a distant sort of way, to the bloody Lewes tag. The executioner took 3 shots at trying to behead him. Anne of Cleves was granted this 15th century house bearing her name in Lewes when her marriage to Henry VIII was annulled in 1541. It was on the 16th of February 1538 that Lewes Priory was given to Thomas Cromwell, who was then Keeper of the Privy Seal. He immediately set about converting part of the prior's lodgings as a home for his son Gregory.
At the dissolution of the monasteries, Thomas Cromwell, who was Henry's chief advisor, had his beady eye on the land of Lewes Priory, as it was one of the richest and largest priories in the country. Now, he also wanted to set up a household in this area, and in fact his son Gregory lived in the what was latterly known as the Lord's Place across the road. It was the old prior's lodgings. But he certainly became Lord of the Manor of Southover when he got all the Lewes Priory lands off of the Priory. Well, the Priory was closed down and demolished, and they did a pretty good job of that by banging posts underneath the foundations and setting fire to them to bring that down. So, as I say, Cromwell's had this as part of his portfolio of properties. So he sent Holbein out to the famous picture of which we've got a copy out in the hall there, to do paintings of possible, which included Christine of Denmark, but also Anne of Cleves and her sister. Henry liked the picture, so said, right, okay, we'll go ahead with it. I suppose it was a bit of a like online dating in Tudor times. The painting was supposed to be a fairly good likeness of her. She has got fairly heavy eyelids. She tended to wear the heavy German style of clothes, which wasn't the sort of flighty sort of stuff, French stuff that Anne Boleyn and the likes would have worn. She was very pragmatic, in as much as she agreed to the annulment of the wedding, and because of that, and I don't know, it's been a bit of a long, circuitous way of getting round to it. To answer your question, the house here became part of the annulment settlement.
Right.
The manor of Southover was one of 9 manors that she got in Sussex. She also, and by manor, we're not just talking about this house and the gardens around it. It's all the land that was providing for. So this was one of 9 manors in Sussex. She had another 9 in Essex. She was welcome at court. She got on well with Henry and Mary and Elizabeth, his 2 daughters as well. She actually outlived all the other wives, and she's the only one buried in Westminster Abbey. At Anne's death, it reverted to the crown, and it went through a number of hands. Most notably was the Saxby family, who did a lot of the alterations to the house. So the original house would have been the footprint that you see from the road. So in fact, the bit that we've got now is the Iron Gallery and the Lewis Room was an old malt house. And eventually, Frank Verrill, who owned it, was on the council and was involved heavily with the Sussex Archaeological Society, presented it to the Society in 1925, and it's been a museum ever since then.
Not much later, in 1603, one of the oldest monuments to Lewis life began existence. A local lawyer, John Rowe, gifted a piece of land to the town. It was much later that the town worthies decided to put it to use. They created Pell's Pool, a public swimming bath, drawing the water from the spring under the land. The water still comes from that source to this day. The cost of the project in the mid-1800s was £442, 5 shillings and 6pence, raised by public subscription. The name Pell's comes from an ancient word meaning pools. Again, it was the priory that influenced this development. There was a series of pools nearby before even the Romans came to Britain. The Normans transformed these pools into fish ponds, and the priory monks used them to rear swans, providing feathers for their quilts. They later drained the area to create water meadows, which included a paper mill. Locals would swim in the mill pond, and so a tradition of swimming was established in the area, resulting in the present-day swimming pool, the oldest freshwater swimming pool in Britain. But water has not always been a friend to Lewis. Whenever I have talked about attacks on Lewis, it has been either fire, wars, or plague. But there was one enemy which had formerly been a friend throughout its history: water. Back in a moment, but for once not a visit to the pub, but a reflection on the power of water. Lewis has always been subject to flooding, but the worst attack was in modern times, in fact, in the year 2000. The flooding was as serious as it was unexpected. 3 days of exceptionally heavy rain caused the River Ouse to spill over the top of its flood defences. Southover, the area near to the Priory, flooded first. But the worst of the deluge swept into the town centre at about 9 o'clock that night. I don't normally like to give what I call a shopping list of facts and figures, but the devastation was as severe as when the French raided the town in the 16th century. Almost 900 properties were flooded, over 500 vehicles were wrecked, and the total cost came to £90 million. More than 1,000 people were displaced. The town was cut in half for 3 days. But the true spirit of Louisians was put on show that night. Homes were opened to the displaced. Elbow grease took over, and the task of repairing the town began almost immediately. The long-term effects were felt for months, even years afterwards. Another bloody chapter in the history of the town. Lewes is a town of little theatre, opera companies, bands and musical societies. The people get on with entertaining themselves. So when cinema disappeared from the high street in 1961, it was barely noticed. Nostalgia, yes, but mourning, no. The townsfolk got cracking, and films were shown in a local abandoned church and the little theatre premises. A local radio station gave limited broadcasts for the week of Bonfire, and another week for a now-defunct Lewes Festival in 1997. Radio K-Burn evolved into Rocket Radio, a broadcaster still going strong, when the bonfire marches begin in November. Then, as if by magic, with the development of blockbuster movies and multi-screen cinemas, the last picture show became the first. A new 3-screen cinema opens its doors. But as you've heard me say several times in this series, this is Lewes, and nothing is ever what it seems. Guess where the cinema is located? No, not quite in one of the 63 pubs, but you're close. In an old storage warehouse owned by Harvey's Brewery. It could only happen in Lewes. Tarantara! Quite wonderful, quite appropriate. Lewes is full of nostalgia, and previously I have told you about the importance of horse racing to Lewes. But equally, it is a railway town, and the railway has had a profound effect on the history of Lewes. The advent of the railway caused one death and one rebirth of important elements of Lewes the town. When it first came in 1844, the Brighton, Lewes and Hastings Railway gave a new means of trading to Lewes. The port had seen a huge amount of activity as the foundations of the new railway lines demanded clay. The barge owners were only too happy to oblige, and their vessels sailed back and forth up the Ouse, bringing load after load. But there is no sentiment in business, as they say. And the railway quickly took over the haulage business once enjoyed by the ships sailing on the Ouse. Slowly, shipping declined, and so did the port. Lewes became an increasingly important railway hub, serving the coastal towns of Sussex as well as London and the nearby town of Uckfield. That line no longer exists, but as with all things lost in Lewes, there are serious attempts to get it reopened. While it caused the decline of the port, it was the saviour of the racecourse. Crowds had rapidly declined after royalty had ceased to favour the track, and transport proved difficult. But the trains gave easy access to Lewes, and the course flourished again. The recording of those races is almost as old as I am. I can remember as a little boy standing on the platform scribbling down numbers as trains belching fire and smoke roared by. Well, those days have gone, but the importance of the routes emanating from Lewes have not. They are key transport systems linking the ports, major towns and the capital city with a ribbon of rail track, reaching out across the country, carrying people and goods. But the original network was much more ambitious than this. Trains have always been important to Lewes. And so, let me use the phrase again. This is Lewes, and nostalgia reigns. Around the country, steam enthusiasts have saved miles of track and hundreds of steam engines for posterity. Lewes has done its bit by keeping the Bluebell Railway. The Bluebell, or to give it its proper name, the Lewes and East Grinstead Railway, ran between the two towns from 1877. It had 5 stations, but all of them were rural. The reason was that the railway was built to run near its benefactor, Lord Sheffield's estate, almost entirely for his own convenience. It recorded that the entire touring Australian cricket team on one occasion was taken to his lordship's residence to play against the Sussex team. Now it's a showpiece of steam trains and puffer engines, clanking along its original route, carrying passengers and goods through wonderful scenery, from Lewes to the old coaching stop of East Grinstead. Nostalgia. Time to say ta-ta again, but tonight, not to a pub, but in a cloud of steam.
Well, there you go. That undoubtedly would bring some memories back to Louisians, but those of you who are new may give you a little bit more added knowledge about the place that you've come to live. It is now 7 minutes past. It's 12 minutes past 9 on the 7th day of October, 2022. And we are facing possibly a winter of discontent, as they say, with power shortages and lockdown of hot water and all the rest of it. Having lived through that for 2 years, in the beginning of this century in Kosovo, I don't get too excited about it myself. But it is uncomfortable, to say the least. And because we have a very low tolerance of our comfort zone anymore, let's try and get this light a little bit better, shall we? Okay. Because we zero tolerance, really, because we are so used to our creature comforts, is that we are not going to put up with it very much. And I think that the idea that we would get a winter of discontent is very true indeed. And we not a happy look, really. The other top stories is in the Ukraine war. Joe Biden, the American president, says nuclear risk is the highest since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. And it is worrying. The funny thing is that let's adjust that a little bit, and perhaps I shall make myself a little bit more comfortable without looking as if I'm too sloppy. The fact of the matter is, I have been saying from the start of this war that this man Putin is quite capable of using nuclear arms. Everybody's poo-pooed me today, but there you are. You know your enemy, and that way you can mount a defense against him. But most people say, no, it'll never happen. But when Joe Biden starts to get excited about it, then I think the rest of us should too. I just trying to see if I can find so the new UK oil and gas licenses are going to be given by the British government, UK government, despite the fact that such activity will increase the chances of global warming, and that can have its own devastating effect on us. Elton and Harry suing the Daily Mail over privacy issues. Ex-Met officer arrested over a racist WhatsApp chat. That's yesterday's news, really. And UK butterfly sightings worryingly low, experts say. So there you are. There's not a huge amount this morning, except for the power cut and the state of the economy. I'm hoping that at about 10 o'clock we shall have Melissa Conti on from New York, and that she will be giving us the American view on what the hell's going on. In the meantime, we shall we say, I'll tell you what, let's just take a look at Lewis from above, because that is something that nowadays, apparently, the use of the flying machines, what do they call the things that carry cameras and so on, drones, is very popular. And we've got just this little 2 or 3 minutes of looking at Lewis from above. So let's do it. Well, it's rather nice to see Lewis from above. It's a pretty town, and it's pretty from above as well as at ground level. It is difficult to tell you what else is going on this morning, because a lot of it is sort of frippy frappy through, and not at all likely to impact your lives one way or the other. So we looking at the news, which is almost solely to do with it's solely to do with lack of less. Oh dear, the tongue is getting in the way of the teeth this morning again. To do with the loss of power during this coming winter months, if certain conditions apply. Now, the papers don't necessarily tell you that until the end. And what it means is that if there is a cold snap, and if the wind drops sufficiently so that we can't use our solar energy, then we may well have to cut back to having 3 hours without power. But they're big ifs, and I think that we have to be very careful that we don't get carried away with this idea of not having power. It appears now, looking at the back pages, that the dream fight, as they call it, between Nigel Benn, Connor Benn, his son, and Chris Eubank Jr. Has been cancelled because Ben has been found to be taking illegal substances, and so that's the back pages, the sports pages, aren't giving us much joy either. There is tonight the Lionesses, the English ladies football team, take on the Americans. So that will be an interesting one, I suppose. And also there's the trauma of the Worcester players and Worcester Rugby Club has gone bust. But none of that is really designed to perk you up, is it? There's an inside story, it's a rather nice one, I think, is showing Kate and the Prince and Princess of Wales now, of course, they're making cocktails. They tried their hands at making cocktails yesterday, and there's a beaming Kate who's having a great deal of fun. I think William is just a little bit more concentrating, and so they. Where were they? A visit to Belfast. Well, now isn't that interesting? Because the cocktails in Belfast are much more popular than they are in the rest of the country. What is my authority for saying that? Well, the fact is, I lived in Belfast for 15 years. And I got to know the place pretty well, as you would think, living there for 15 years. And in the Europa Hotel, now no longer extant, I'm afraid, they were always having cocktail contests. And because I knew the management and I knew the bartenders and so on rather well, I was always being asked to be a judge. Not anything national, but to taste some of the cocktails. And I must say that they were very, very good at it. Very good indeed. And it was interesting that in that Europa Hotel, which is the one that was bombed 28 times, and the manager, Harper Brown, got so fed up of having bombs in his hotel that he just picked them up and walked them out and put them on the sidewalk and said, "It's not my job to defuse these damn things. Get the army to do it." And God bless him, he had a tie made for those people who had actually been in the hotel during an attack by the IRA. I don't think I have one myself, but there we are. That's the way that people started to see it in the end. Is shoppers feeling the pinch, snap of blankets on one-pot stoves. Now, the Mail has done a little item here, which might be of interest, I think, is this season's coolest gift is hard-up middle-class shoppers are buying heated throws, air fryers, and one-pot cookers to avoid soaring energy bills. So shopping trends by Lakeland show sales of Ramoscus, the portable electric oven, are up 54% this year. So what they've done is, first of all, they've said these are the top buying. This is what's selling, and it says that these are their Christmas gifts. So there's the Fair Isle heated throw, and that's a sort of a blanket, I suppose. Do we call blankets throws now? I suppose we do. A cheese lover's chiller tote. Gosh, what is that? What is a cheese lover's chiller tote? It's whatever it is, it costs £38.99. Gong hot chocolate melt. Oh dear. Well, I think that the melts are something like a sandwich, aren't they? That's put in a microwave. Hey, I don't know. Traditional gingerbread house kit. Right. That's if you want to make gingerbread houses, I suppose. 6.5 litre digital stand mixer. Don't know what that is either. Good heavens. These are all things which are with the modern generation, I guess. Children's ultimate baking set. Well, I can get my mind around that. And Uni Caru multi-fuel pizza oven. Ooh, that's a mighty £299, 300 quid. And Northern Lights colour fire cones, 1696. Oh, preparing for the cost of living winter crisis as those people buying extra blankets, 41%. Hot water bottle, 37%. My goodness me, I didn't know they even made hot water bottles anymore. But those things will start to come back into their own, I suppose. A wearable blanket, that's one that you can just throw around you. Electric heater and fingerless gloves all figure in the ratings for preparing for the cost of living in the upcoming winter. Wood burning or multi-fuel stove, heated throw. I just hate that heated throw. What is a blanket or what? An open fire and a heated food warmer and a heated neck warmer. Now, what are our favorite cocktails? Right. A mojito. A pina colada is number 2. A passion fruit martini at number 3. A margarita at number 4. A whiskey sour at number 5. Martini number 6. Rum punch number 7. A daiquiri at 8. And a gimlet at 9. And then we come in at number 10 with a cosmopolitan. Well. There you go. Who would have guessed it? All those things coming back. I don't think I'd have the temerity to ask for a cocktail. I'll go over to the Works Canteen. The Works Canteen is the Rights of Man pub here in Lewes. It's where we go for our drinks and sometimes lunch and so on. And we make sure that we get the very best benefits there. But I have not seen them making a cocktail. And I'm going to test them. I'm going to go in. Perhaps I can't today because I have a couple of things to do immediately after the show today. But I'm going to go in next week, and I'm going to sort of ask for. I want a mojito. I would get one. I'd be interested to see. Cocktails went out of fashion, unfortunately. They are making a bit of a comeback, and they are a nice blend of alcoholic poisons to make you to make you sit up. Now, why we shun bucket lists for old favorites? Research shows the older we get, the more likely we are to stick to old habits rather than to try new things. Behavioral experts said their findings, published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, could help people better manage their time by nudging them towards the comfort of something well known rather than the excitement of something new. Well, I think I'm a bit of a Luddite. I like certain things that I like, but I am not averse to being nudged towards something new. And it's hopefully I'm not quite the Luddite that others would make me out to be. That's having to go back at some friends who say, "Oh, you're so traditional, Keith. You're so traditional." Oh gosh, we're clothes hoarders as well. Right, okay. Those are the things in the inside. Once again, the headlines this morning, the front pages are almost all taken up with that we may well have cuts to both electricity and to oil fired stuff. That we may well face 3 hours of no heat, no light, no dark, because we cut it off. Once again, the response from the government, who haven't thought these things through, is pretty muddled. But apparently, they'll give you some help if you've got a smart meter. Now, I've heard of some blackmailings. Get a smart meter, and which the power companies at one time would give you for free. I don't know if they still do, but much better that you actually go and get one of these things and get your tenner a day, I think it is, that's being recommended. But also you've got to show that you've got appliances at home that save power. I don't really have much problem with that because I've got friends who constantly find themselves too cold to, no matter what the temperature outside. And they have those sort of things, I'm sure, will be on loan. Right, okay. No, I actually picked out some things this morning that I thought might make you amusing. I think, yes, they're a bit amusing, or actually give us an insight into what's happening. Now, this is an old story. It's about a year old, but our good friend Rosie Hayes at Your News UK, YN UK television, who supplies features and soft news pieces to various television stations around the country, she went and did something on artificial intelligence, which is becoming more and more to the front in our news items. So let's see what she came up with.
Rosie, how's this for a first? A robot has been employed as a waitress at the tea rooms and restaurants in Cobham, Surrey. She has enthralled all the customers. Her name is Teresa. She's very friendly, efficient, and they love her. She has built up a terrific fan base in the area. Take a look. Are you going to put Robot Teresa to work now?
Yes, she will gonna go to the carriage to the ladies with the kids.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish.
What was
was the experience like?
It was interesting.
Children loved it.
Yeah, the children did.
Yeah.
Freya, what did you think of the robot?
Did you find her pleasant to
Yes.
talk
Yes,
to?
very polite.
Very
Doesn't actually talk.
Hello, how are you today?
It's really simple to use, which is to press any table number and choose the dish and just press start, and then she's gonna go to the table which has been selected.
I am going to work now. Hello, here is your dish. Please take it away from my tray.
Do you wanna touch the red hand so it will move now?
The red hand?
Yeah, it's on each side. Well,
I am going back to work now.
That was an amazing experience.
Yes, definitely. Really good.
Were you expecting anything like this at all this morning?
No, absolutely not.
She memorizes, she has her own base where she's always staying. She's not replacing any human being, it's just assist the person, like assist the waitress to help them. Maybe one day is gonna be our future, but at the moment like it's just for fun, for attract people, kids, and just have such a nice time here.
Hello, how are you today?
So there we are. The robot waitress. Is it going to come? Hard to say. I somehow I don't see that catching on. I think it's something that human contact is necessary for. But anyway, Rosie went out and she discovered what it was all about, and good for her, because she digs up these funny little things for us, and some of them are great fun. Now, I this time last year, about 14 months ago, I spent 6 or 8 weeks in New Haven, and I had my own ideas of what should be done to help regenerate it. And I saw a great potential in the town, which nobody else sees. They got lots of money to do things with it, and it's all going on newfangled projects, in my view. But let's take a look at New Haven, because it's in our patch, as it were. Well, there we are, New Haven, no more than 4 or 5 miles from Lewis, a port with a very interesting history, actually, for those people who aren't familiar with New Haven. The ferry still goes to Dieppe from there. It's about a 2.5-hour run, And I rather like that. I'm not sure that I want to go the way that they do at Calais, as you're on for 30 minutes and you're off at the other end. You are able to have a meal or a glass of wine or whatever on the ferry on the way over from New Haven. The only thing is, I got just a warning to travellers. I got stuck at the other end because I got on the bus to take me into town, and you do need a little bus, to take you in. I found out that they only take euros, and I didn't have any. And the bus driver is very unsympathetic. Thank God there was a nice couple on it who came to my rescue and gave him the €2 or whatever. It's not a fortune, but nonetheless, if you haven't got a euro, it doesn't help. Doesn't help in the least. Now, let's see what is thieves thought to have slaughtered more than 100 stolen sheep. Apparently sheep rustling is on the up with some of the food crises that we've got. It has been a year of crises. We had to adapt to lockdown, and then we had to adapt to many changes for a Brexit, and then we had to have a change for energy crisis, and now we've got to sort of start to look at not only energy crisis, but food shortages, also the issue of inflation, which is hitting us and still is running at about 9 to 10%. It has been a year in which we've not been able to rest from some of the crises. Of course, tomorrow, we've got, in various parts of the country, we've got rail strikes. And I think I saw somewhere that the nurses are now talking about going on strike. Not only the train drivers, but some bus drivers are talking about going on strike. Yes, a winter of discontent it could well be. But I'm not so sure that I'm very sympathetic to those people who are going on strike. There was a militant from Aviva, the travel company, who were jumping up and down, sort of saying what poor wages they'd got and so on and so forth. But I understand that train drivers is very few are under 60,000 a year, and that is almost double what a lot of other people are making. And I'm not at all sympathetic with some of these strikers. Some may have a legitimate brief against the people they work for, but I'm just trying to see what we've. I'm really keeping my eye open for Melissa, and I hope that she'll join us in a little while. But it is 5 o'clock, or it's 4:30 now in New York. So even at that early hour, I have some sympathy with her getting out of bed to talk to us. Right, okay, where are we here? More from the UK. A woman has a rape case dropped over claims she had sexsomnia. Is now suing the CPS. Oh, they do get some complicated things in court, don't they? A thug who left a Sikh priest brain damaged in a racial attack has been jailed for 3 years. Rowling, the authoress, calls Sturgeon destroyer of women's rights as the author backs new trans law protests. Oh dear! This business of sexuality is also getting out of hand, and I'm sorry if I am so luddite that I can't get excited about it, but I think that it affects a small number of the population. The thing is that it makes a much bigger noise than most. And Harry and Sir Elton John are among the groups suing the Mail over a bugging impersonation and accessing bank accounts. Well, that's more or less what's going on there. What else have we got in store for you? I'm sure we must have all sorts of things. It's, well, what the heck? Let's just remind you who we are.
Mirador Television. It's like Marmite. Just like Marmite. Love us or hate us. But you'll never forget us. Help save Mirador. Go to Indiegogo at this link.
Forget that bit. Forget that bit. Yes, there I am back again. Yes, Marmite. We are like Marmite. We are a quirky television station, very quirky, and I very much often say, I quote the Marmite thing. We are like Marmite. You either love us or you hate us, but you never forget us, and that's for damn sure. That is for damn sure. And is keeping us up to date is a bit difficult because we never quite know what we've got in stock, what we're going to talk about. We particularly, and it's very quiet today, but we quite often will hijack people walking through the doors or the corridors of the hotel. And we grab them and say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And they say, "Oh, well, we're down from so and so and so and so. And we come to watch this, that, and the other." And we get them to come and actually chat to us because people are. There's no question. People are interesting. They are indeed, and so we very much likely. Speaking of not many people, is the funny thing is the traffic this morning was horrendous. Now I don't know whether there's some reason. Perhaps people are positioning themselves for the fact that tomorrow is a rail strike. There is no. There's no train service almost anywhere in the country. So I wonder if that is why perhaps some people are going to work in case the shutdown starts this afternoon. That would explain it. That would explain it. Because I mean, the traffic was horrendously up compared to most mornings, and so we have to be careful when you cross the road, for one thing. But I have to say, I did say to a chap that I know waiting for the bus is that I wouldn't own a car. I gave up a car when my wife died in 2013, and I haven't had one since. But I really find that they are now such a huge expense. Never mind buying the damn things, but with parking and road tax and other things that you have to, including, of course, petrol, the cost of which is zoomed, it takes a big chunk out of the family budget. Of course, it's what everybody decides that they want, but nonetheless, it is a big chunk out of a family's budget. Let's well, I am not sure what OnePlus is about, but let's take a look. Well, there you are. That's Laugh a Little in Lewis. But basically, it gives you some idea from a different perspective of what our town is like. And it's a thriving little town, or it was a thriving little town. But one of the things, of course, that if you take away the brain box, you've got a problem. And much as they are not much very brainy people, but Lewis District Council now is settled in Eastbourne. The logic of that defies description. But it was a combination of civil service and politicians' decision a few years ago, and they've carried it out, and it's a disaster. It is a moving disaster, but nobody seems to want to do anything about it. Certainly not our politicians, but as you know, my respect for politicians has gone to zero, and that includes the local lot. There are one or two people, there are one or two decent politicians locally. I do know a couple, but generally speaking, I think that they're a wishy-washy lot who don't really understand what the true issues are. And it's very sad indeed. So there you go. Yes, it's it's the 7th of October, the 10th month of the year, entering the last quarter, and the time is 9:52, and outside the temperature is probably nudging about 16 or 17. That so far we haven't seen any rain. It is not as bright as it has been, but it's not dull either. So when you go outside, be careful that you take a raincoat with you and make sure you don't get caught. I know it's a pain in the bottom having to nudge through crowded restaurants and so on, and knocking things with your heavy clothes, which we're not used to wearing again for a while. But it has to be done. It has to be done. Otherwise, you get soaking, and then you get ill, and oh dear. Then we get into that sort of syndrome. I'm rambling a wee bit. Indeed, I am, because I have nobody to talk to this morning, and I really do like it when I've got somebody to talk to. When I'm talking to myself, I get a bit upset about it, not being not being a good talker to myself. One of the things that is very frightening is that throughout the world, including this country, the attacks on press freedom are getting more legion. And what's happening is we're getting in a new generation of journalists and broadcasters who really don't know too much about the imposition of boundaries and restrictions on media. They tend to take the view that everything is okay. Let's not worry. But there are people who actually suggest that stealthily this government and governments previous to it have been slowly eroding freedom of the press. And my Canadian family, which I have many right across the country, express the same worries and fears in Canada. So if we do get to Melissa this morning, one of the questions we must ask her is about press freedom. All right, let's. I'll tell you one thing: we forget, don't we, sometimes some of the things that we were very keen on, and the situation that prevailed and doesn't now. And while it may be that people have seen us sitting chatting to the sworn enemy for 15 or 20 minutes, is that in fact most journalists try to be apolitical. We try to stay away from politics. We have to report on them. We have to understand them. But we try to stay away in terms of having it as a driver. So from time to time, we come across little gems and say, oh my God, I've forgotten all about this. And this one is lest we forget what was happening not too long ago.
In 1970 to 1989, not so long ago.
That has particular memories for me because I spent 15 years of my life in Belfast at the height of the Troubles. And as you can understand, what we went through, and yet we've forgotten. But one of the good things that happened is there were some far-sighted people in Belfast that saw reconstruction the moment that this war was either won or ended for whatever reason. Is that they started to plan the infrastructure properly. And now Belfast is a gorgeous, gorgeous city. And it is much better planned, for instance, than Docklands, where the regeneration started so quickly that it wasn't time to build bridges and roads and so on. And those things came afterwards rather than before, so that they could buildings could be properly laid out. And Belfast is an excellent example of good planning, good forward thinking, and then putting it together to make a super city. So there we are. Now, I am happy to say that Melissa has appeared on the screen. And am I glad to see you, Melissa? Good morning, my darling. How are you?
Keith, I'm pouring coffee, Keith.
Good for you. Good for you. I had mine earlier. I've still got the cup. I can join you and pretend. Uh, um, there we go. I would love something stronger in it, but it's a bit early even for me for that.
This is
Now,
my Royal Air Force mug
oh gosh, now where did you get that from?
from the Royal Air Force Museum.
Ah, right. Yes, that's right. The last time you were over, you and Connor was with you.
Yes,
Yes, you went down to I know it's Duxford or where the museum is.
I don't know. Somewhere in England. I don't know. I don't remember. I just don't remember. It was a wonderful time. We had a great time. And you know,
Uh,
I'll tell you what's funny. You know, Connor is so knowledgeable about aircraft, British aircraft, historical British aircraft. I mean, such an odd thing to think about, right? Or to be an expert on. But he is, because he's such an expert on aviation. And he was explaining, we were going along and he was explaining each of the aircraft. And people would gather, they thought he was a tour guide.
Well, now, where is he in his career? Because he's floating somewhere between Cardiff, Edinburgh, Tokyo, New York. Where is he at the moment?
Well, he's here in New York at the moment, but lots of changes are coming up. So he has a temporary job until the military calls him for service. So yeah, actually, he's going to be working as a TV producer.
Oh,
For,
wonderful.
yeah, for the BBC of Japan, NHK.
NHK. Well, now, let me tell you that you and I met when you were the anchor for morning and nightly business report, and I became the London anchor, if you want to call it that. And I came to that from a little program, which was the very first Sky business program, because Sky was only just getting cracking at the beginning of the 1990s. And it was called, I think, European Business Today. And its main outlet was NHK in Tokyo. So there we are. They're a great organization. If you take the time to go onto the web and see the various things that they do, NHK Japan, and they do a lot in English as well. Which does he speak Japanese?
Yes, he does. Very
Yes,
well.
I thought he did. Yeah, so he'll be working for the Japanese arm.
Yes, he will, and he'll be reporting on the eastern half of the United States, so the East Coast.
Right.
And yeah, so he's quite excited. So
yes, I would think so.
His main love is the military and flying fighter jets, and that's what his passion is. So it'll be a very, very interesting year. Like incredible change.
Yes, I mean, actually, I think that he is a very, very good example, is he not, of a young man who fights things through. Because it looked as if at one stage he was turned down for some flying because of some technical reason, and he was quite down about it, wasn't he? And now here he is on the top of the heap. He's going to fly faster than sound jets for the United States Navy. He's a TV producer for NHK, the leading Japanese network, and his life is totally turned around.
Yes, it was, sometimes when you get injured, you have a tendency it's depressing. And I think all of us have been in low parts in our lives. But I think it's very important not to give up hope, and to, as we always say together, never give up.
That's right.
Actually, Connor's uncle would tell him, if you want something really badly, you will do what you can to get it. If you don't, you'll make excuses. So you you can't give up. And so that,
You can't indeed.
yeah.
Actually, is never give up, never surrender, and that comes from the movie Galaxy Quest, which they showed here the other night. It's a marvelous movie. Anybody who hasn't seen Galaxy Quest, you've got to see it. It's hilarious. It is very, very funny indeed. I mean, very quickly, the theme is that the cast of a television sci-fi show about space, all they've got left is to go around to various conventions and show off their wares because the series has ended. And so the real space people come and take them, and they've copied everything from this space show. It really is. It is very, very funny indeed. So that Galaxy Quest, make a note, but never give up, never surrender. Terrific stuff.
That's our theme, isn't it, Keith? Isn't that our mutual theme?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I was just looking back, Melissa, and you and I have one way or another managed to keep a form of television going between here and the United States for almost 10 years. Do you know that? I just came across a little note because I was researching some of our back programs. I came across a little note in which I said to somebody, now Melissa is the backbone of Mirador Television, which in those days we actually called Eye to Eye, I think, but not Mirador. But we've been together for a long, long time. And we started to work together in 1990 at Reuters, or at I've forgotten what my Morning Business Report, it was called that, wasn't it? Morning Business Report. So we've known one another for a long time. The thing is that I'm looking old and craggy, and you're looking like the day I actually met you, for God's sake. How do you do it?
Oh, you know the secret. You know the secret, Keith.
The other thing that I came across was the episodes of oh gosh, Stuart has arrived, so be prepared. Be prepared. Yeah.
Well, I just want to enlighten you on certain things.
Right. Okay. Well, Melissa's just come on, so take your time, take your coat off, and then come and sit down and have a chat to Melissa.
But I'm in Hastings. I thought you were going to past. I'm not existent past.
Now you've made me forget what I was talking about. Oh, talking about us being together on the nightly business report, and we've known one another for that long. What do we go on to from there?
What did we go on to from there? Well, there was a portion of time when I was in a different field. I was teaching, and then I was on Wall Street, which I'm still.
Yes, right. I mean, you are a lady of many parts.
I mean, we are in such amazing times. It's wow. I work with some of the stock traders and the equity and bond traders who make up Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund, and we have daily conversations. It's such a crazy time out there in the market. Like, wow. And the economies. Oh, yeah, I know you had quite the earthquake with that mini budget that came out.
Absolutely. And I was actually going to say, of course, moving on to that, as an expert.
Really, honestly, I don't know that was a great, that the timing wasn't really good. It could have maybe a little bit, perhaps, I think she's still in this dream world of trickle-down economics.
That's what Biden called it, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, sit down. Let people see you if you're going to.
It doesn't really trickle. It doesn't really trickle. Just to let you know. Anyway, no. So yeah, it probably would have been the optics weren't very good on that plan. I think she tried to play both sides, Liz, in coming out with that mini budget. It's not the time to play both sides. It isn't. It isn't. You know,
It doesn't make any sense.
I think she tried to make an impact, and as a consequence, did too many things too soon, whether they were right or wrong.
Hi, I'm Margaret Thatcher. Here's the plan. And come on, you got to be your own person. Yeah, I think she's just trying to please everybody right now. And I think she's really playing in the hands of labor. I hate to tell you that. I mean, she truly is. I mean, she walked in on a very shaky ground. Conservative Party was on very shaky ground, and I don't think she helped. That's just from an outsider's perspective. You may have a different perspective. And
No. Actually, I think it's very important. And one of the things that we tell people when we advise them that you're going to be on a Friday is we get the American perspective. And whether we like it or not, our two countries are tied together in so many ways. The American perspective is very important. You're giving us your personal view, but was America shaken a bit by it?
No. I think we're so far away and so myopic, and
very secular, aren't you?
Power that we do love the Queen, we love the royalty, we love that aspect of you. I don't know that anybody here besides somebody like me who's into finance. I also do appreciate the lowering of the pound for my trip in December. Thank you, Liz. Not sure that it had the intended effect, but it did. So I was like, Anyway, yeah. Hopefully you all will crawl back because we all love you, and we want to see you happy.
Well, okay. Now I'm going to let Stuart chat to you for a minute or two because
oh goodness, what does Stuart think of Liz Truss?
Well, Stuart comes in every morning, clutching the FT, and has a grumble about what's happening. So here you go, Stuart. Have a chat to Melissa about the economy.
Hi, Melissa. The whole thing is that you can't actually cut taxes and then try it because, first of all, it stokes inflation, okay, which is a mad step one. Secondly, Quasimodo, as I call him.
That's the Chancellor.
Quasimodo. And Putin has become Rasputin. Anyway, Quasimodo doesn't really know.
You didn't like that lifting of the bankers' bonuses cap? Did you like that?
That's ridiculous. I mean, look, it's just excessive capitalism, profiteering. These people are like you say, that's why Mrs. Thatcher she just wants to, capitalism is all right. I agree, not when it becomes excessive.
Problems, though. It does have its problems. You have so you look at Margaret Thatcher. Maybe you take out some of the good stuff. You don't use her entire playbook. Not all of it really worked out well. So
the market economy, generally speaking, works. It's just when it gets too excessive, basically. That's really. I mean, people.
2007, there has to be regulation. I know, Alan Greenspan's like, oh well, the markets will police themselves. No, they won't. Not necessarily. Sorry.
Of course not. No, of course they don't. No.
No, we are so much into a generation now that is me, is that market boys are no different. Everybody rushed to make a profit. They fell over themselves trying to do it. Yeah.
I think, for example,
that comes from a very good, that she's actually said she's going to privatize Asian energy companies. Well, fish may fly. I can't see her doing that, for God's sake. I mean, all these
that maybe are not so great privatized. Healthcare is one of them.
Sorry? Healthcare?
Yes, that's not a great area to privatize, especially when it comes to, we have a system, I don't know if you want to call it a system, it's this hodgepodge system where a lot of it is private insurance. Do you honestly think that they're going to forego their salaries and the shareholders are going to forego their dividends so that patients can get care? Please. So you're going to get less care. at a very high price here. It's insane. So please keep your NHS, just improve it, but don't privatize it. Oh, God,
Yeah.
please don't. Anyway,
I've got a feeling that it's the NHS as such has become a sacred cow here. I don't think any government would dare actually, well, certainly fully privatise it. But
Well, look at Boris Buffoon. He actually wanted Trump to buy the NHS over here. He wanted to have a deal with Trump, but Trump would actually buy, just like he tried to buy Greenland. This is a pie in the sky, all of it, isn't it? Really.
well, I'll tell you what he did here, which really truly upset me. Now, there may be some things out there that he might have done correctly. I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day. But what he did with the seniors' care, we have a system called Medicare, kicks in when you're 65, and it's a very good system. My father had very, very good care in his older age. What he did was he allowed seniors in a push to get them off of Medicare, okay, to have something called Medicare Advantage. Doesn't that sound lovely? It's private insurance. And then what the seniors are now finding, oh, well, I get, free gym membership. That's $10 a month. Who cares? But when you have a heart attack, you have to go to special hospitals that are not so great. And you don't get the doctors and the care that you need when you have a catastrophic illness. They will, because it's expensive. And of course, you got to pay the CEOs of the insurance companies, right? You got to pay
The thing about privatization, I think, is that they can't afford, the government can't afford to pay people properly. There's no money in it, in other words, because look, for example, like the energy companies, they get the price as high as they can so that they can pay themselves amazing fortunes. But if you're privatization, you can't put it up.
But what we're talking about here is life or death.
Yeah.
When you're talking about life or death, and I'm going to give this person this care, but we can't afford to give them this much care that might save them. I think when you're talking about different sectors, there's certain things that are just sacred, and life is one of them. Healthcare is one of them. You want to maybe education, or you want to take another sector and privatize something else. Not education and not healthcare, because that's about life and death.
Yeah, but one of the problems here is it was set off by Tony Blair. Sorry.
Yeah, the profit motive in healthcare. Oh my gosh, what it's done to this country. Seriously.
But look. But what happened here is that Tony Blair, when he was Prime Minister, he had a whole lot of money. He pushed a whole lot of money towards the NHS, right? Which NHS is, to my mind, Britain's greatest achievement. And that money has all gone on administrators and consultants.
Okay.
50% of the people employed in the National Health Service are administrators. If they kept the old matrons on, they'd know what to do, but they don't. And the thing is that now, for example, you have to go private half the time, and then I was told, I had a hernia, and I said, what's the waiting list? And they said, it's 93 weeks. And I said, well, that's 2 years. So I can't go around with it like that. So I decided I would go private to Spear. And it cost me $4,000, which is quite a lot of money, as these things go. But that consultant was getting paid, and he was also doing operations on the National Health, but not many of them. So that's the way the whole thing has gone. It's just ridiculous.
Right. It's disguising a little bit of privatizing. It's seeping in, and it's causing problems, as you can see.
Well, you've heard what's happening here, don't you? That a lot of doctors are chucking it in because they can't stand the stress, and also they're all burnt out and that kind of thing. And the doctors are not coming along.
Right. I mean, let's think about it. Does a nurse or a doctor go into the medical field because they really want to make a lot of money? Because if you want to make a lot of money, you can come over here to Wall Street. There you go. But if you
you wouldn't make a lot of money on the London stock. You wouldn't make a lot of money on the London Stock Exchange at the moment. It's going right through the floor, basically.
But still find a way to do it, and not in some very shady ways, though. Let me tell you, some crazy
Well, I
stuff.
know how to do it, you see. You do a bear market, right?
Well, I mean, it really, you can, if you know what you're doing, you can do well anyway. You'll find a way to make a lot of money if you're wise.
Quite. You do a bear market, so you sell an awful lot of shares in a certain company, right? And so the price goes down, and then you buy them back when they're on the floor, and you make a lot of money.
Right. What's happening right now is we've got some tax changes here coming up on January 2nd, involving shareholder buybacks. So some of the companies are going to be buying back a lot of their stock. And so what's going to happen, there's less supply, and that means that the prices are going to go up, at least temporarily. So we'll have a temporary bump toward the end of the year, you'll see, in our equities market. So do expect that.
Well, companies like BP and Shell don't have to do buyback. They just get it back anyway. And you see that there's been this whole thing here about, you can't tax BP and Shell because a lot of their money, their profits, goes into the pension funds. And keeping all the pension funds alive. Do you know how much? What's the percentage of BP and Shell's money goes into pension funds? 7%. Actually, that would just keep one pension fund going for a few years.
Well, I think
so it's an absolute mess.
I think so too. I mean, I think with the pension funds here anyway, and I'm not an expert in pension funds in the UK. What I've seen over the years as pensions are underfunded, they don't expect much contribution from their employees, and so what's happening is they need Wall Street to grow their funds at a certain rate. It used to be 7% was the benchmark. You cannot rely on 7% unless you take incredible risks. And so for years, the pension funds have been taking a lot of risk. This is not a great idea, truly. I mean, there are some rules here, but they've been relaxed. So what you're going to find is the ups and downs of pension funds. You hope that they can pay the pensioners. I don't know. So a lot of people have been screaming about this upcoming crisis for a long time because baby boomers are really in need of their pensions. They're retiring like crazy here.
Yeah, and one of the best pension funds in the country is the Financial Times.
Yeah.
I happen to be lucky enough to be a beneficiary of it.
Can we switch the emphasis for a moment, because Joe Biden, just in the last little while, has been quoted as saying that the crisis in terms of a nuclear war are as big as they were in, was it 1966, and the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. What's the feeling there, Melissa?
Word tactical is the difference.
Oh, what's the feeling here? Well, I don't know. Overall, people are nervous. Yes. People are upset. I think that you'll find some people want to do more intervention in the Ukraine and some don't, because they don't want their little lives to change, but I don't think there's a choice really. So I think we're trying to avoid thinking about it, which is what Americans are famous for doing.
But there is a huge difference between a tactical nuclear strike and a strategic one. I mean, the Bay of Pigs was a strategic one because it was going to come right across. Tactical one, what I think Rasputin's involved with is to actually knock out a few factories in Ukraine. Tactical bomb is very different to a strategic one.
Well, I think
either way, it's not good.
Once there's a use of a nuclear bomb on Kiev, which is threatened, that's when the U.S. has to spring into action. No fly zones, and we start to have real confrontation. So. Yeah.
No fly zones, though, for the United States would be, I mean, that'd be a bit like a train strike here, isn't it? Because you're such a vast country, people fly everywhere.
They're talking no-fly zones over Ukraine.
Ah, right. Not over the United States.
The United States is already protected. I see it night and day, but it's Ukraine. It's so us getting directly involved. Once you use nuclear weapons, you've broken any treaty. You've broken it all. It's time for us to get involved. You cannot do that. You cannot use nuclear weapons against another country. Nope. So that's
Yes.
when we get involved. So let's hope he's
But
not.
nonetheless, is
He's proven his stupidity over and over again. So I don't.
yeah. You did actually say at one stage that some of your technology can disable some of these missiles before they actually hit their target. I mean, does everybody feel reasonably safe in the United States from a
No, I
nuclear
don't think that.
holocaust?
I don't think it's absolute. So I'm sure my son can speak more on that because he's much more knowledgeable than I am. But I don't think it's absolute. If you want to send a missile over here, you're going to get a lot of them back. So I don't think it's just not going to end well. You're talking about major cities being disintegrated. What for? What for? What?
Yeah.
Because you're scared of NATO. Now you're really going to be scared of NATO.
Yeah.
Now you're really going to be scared of.
I mean, there is an article this morning by somebody who presumably knows what he's talking about, to say that actually Russia would be by far the biggest loser if a nuclear conflict does begin.
It's the biggest loser right now. He just can't see it because his ego is clouding his vision, and he's a sick man. He's a sick man. We keep trying to put him in a normal box. He's not normal. He's not normal. Stop, everybody. He's loony.
Yeah.
He's Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I hope he's listening, by the way. You're crazy. Anyway.
Right. Okay. Now, what else is exercising the minds of Americans? It's been 2 weeks now since you've been on. What sort of things are issues at home?
Issues at home. I got to be very honest with you. I've been, I read the news probably every other day. I'll read Associated Press or Reuters, but I don't watch television. I don't. I don't have the time to hear the blah, 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 blah. I can't. I just can't. So I don't, what's been exercising our minds lately? We've got Halloween coming up. Yay! So we love, especially in my town, Sleepy Hollow. You ever heard of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he lived here. His little house is still here in Irvington, named after Washington Irving, and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We have Sleepy Hollow down the road. So we're all excited to, reenact the Legend of Sleepy Hollow and go through there's a cemetery by the Rockefeller Estate. There's a lot of celebration, and they go crazy with the Halloween decorations here. Crazy. So it's a lot of fun here around Halloween.
I mean, it is gaining in popularity in the United Kingdom now, but I don't think that anybody here has quite an understanding of how widespread Halloween is in America. I mean, on that night, every kid and every family are out on the streets, aren't they? In fancy dress and knocking on doors and.
Yeah, it's a lot of that was not in place during the pandemic. People were nervous, and now that we really do consider here that the pandemic is over, they're going to go crazy. The parties in the streets, it's a lot. It's just so much fun here. It really is.
And is that true of the cities as well as the small towns?
Yes, they love it. They love things like this. It's just I'll take some photos of it when they really go all out in the next week or so. I'll send them to you. You can post them.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it's nice to see. We've already seen someone dressed up as the devil. So yeah, I was like, is this Halloween or is this actually the devil's?
Actually, I think one of the best scenes to demonstrate what Halloween is like is in E.T. When they smuggle him out of the house as a little ghost. Some wonderful Halloween scenes there, I think. So, what's Melissa? One of the things that is slowly becoming contentious here is the working from home and whether people should go back to the office. And Jacob Rees-Mogg is one of the senior Tories, said to the civil servants in his department, if you ain't coming back to work, I'm going to flog your office off, so you won't have anywhere to come back to work from. There is, I think, slowly a move back. But what's the view in the United States of working at home? Are you going to continue to do it, or are people going back to the office?
It's more of a, I think in many cases, it's a hybrid where you come in, they call it an anchor day. You'll come in one specific day, you really have to come in, and then you can choose maybe 2 other days or 1 other day, depending. If you only come in 2 days a week, they're basically taking away your desk, and then you just find whatever desk you can. If you come in 3 days a week, then you get your desk. You know, if you're going to give me a desk either way, I really don't care. I mean, you can't get rid of remote work. The cat's out of the bag. Sorry, you're not going to get rid of it. There is an ability for people to work from home now, and they do a good job. So accommodate that. You can't go backwards in time. I mean, let's go back to Henry VIII. There you go. I mean, come on. You can't. It is what it is, and you have to accommodate it. You have to say, okay, we have to change. And so we change with the times, and yes, you can come in, but there should be times when you can work remotely as well. Sometimes what they're looking at, okay, I rented really expensive commercial real estate and it's sitting there empty, and we feel really bad about that, so we better have people come back. That's not a great reason, because you rented too expensive commercial real estate. That's on you. You're the idiot. So there's more of a hybrid, and I think what you were speaking to was a gentleman who wants to take back control. It's about control over the workers.
Yeah.
But it is.
Hi, Melissa.
If you're getting the work done and the work's getting done properly, what's the problem? We have control over you. We're going to make you, trudge and, commute 3 hours a day, and spend $400 a month to do it. For what? I can do the same job at home. And so what's happened here also is that employers will steal from companies. They'll steal each other's employees, good ones, and offer them fully remote.
Stuart is saying goodbye, by the way.
I was going to go into Brighton and have a chat.
Good talking to you.
We got the Omicron back again. Now, COVID's really a real concern again.
Stuart says to pass on to you that the worry about COVID this winter is becoming very real again here.
The thing is, what is COVID now? What is COVID? It's mutated. What's it mutated into? It's what the scientists said would happen. It's going to mutate into something that looks like the cold.
Right.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So while we can say, oh my God, I have COVID, I have the sniffles.
Right. In that case, I'm not going to worry about a jab. I'm going to get a bottle of whiskey.
Everybody just take care of themselves, stay healthy.
Go to bed each night with a glass of brandy, a lemon and a bit of honey, and you're going to get rid of COVID. Anyway, bye, Melissa. Nice talking to you.
Bye, Stuart.
Right now, just to bring people up to date with Connor. First of all, how's his beer?
He made the best Mürzen I mean, really good. He bottled the bitter. Well, he bottled one bitter. We're gonna. I before he bottled it, it was very good. Here's my problem with British bitter. We in America like a lot of carbonation and very cold. That's not what the British bitter is.
And no, it's designed to be drunk at room temperature. Yeah.
So the other day we went to a British pub in New York City, and I got a Fuller's, and I liked it because it's got carbonation and it was kept cold for American taste. Connor got a red ale from a cask, and I just thought it was, what is that? So I think that a couple of the bottles he added more of the sugar, so there's more carbonation. And so we're going to see what it tastes like, because I think the underlying flavor was very good. It's just going to be how, it's the carbonation and the temperature that are going to really make a difference for me. Maybe not for you or Miles, but his beer making is really coming around.
That's great.
Very good. Very
Now,
good.
are we going to see some of it in December so that we can get it compared at Harvey's?
Yes, mommy bought, mommy, gave him the funds to check in his bags so we can put the beer in the suitcase.
Right.
So, of course, mommy's not checking in her bags.
Well, I'm going to look forward to that, and of course, we're going to capture that on a video and for all time. But it will be interesting because he made some very perceptive notes when he was taken around Harvey's on the tour. I think that it's quite impressive, really. Perhaps what will happen is that his bitter will turn out to be a hybrid, and Harvey's will start to brew it under license or something.
Ooh, how did we do this? This is good. We need this recipe. There you go.
Yeah.
Now he has to remember what he did.
Yes. Right, Melissa. Then you have to. Are you working from home today, or are you going into the office?
I'm going into the office because I'm going out with friends this evening. Friends I haven't seen in a long time. So I'm very excited. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to go to a little Mexican restaurant. Where is it? I guess it's Midtown, Manhattan, and it'll be very nice. Very, very nice. He was a fellow paralegal who was an Army veteran, and very smart young individual, very smart young man, very educated. I mean, really one of the best we've had. Honestly, when he started, so much better than I was when I started. I was a mess.
Oh dear.
Because I was coming from a completely different field. I was coming from journalism and teaching. I didn't know anything about law. Oh my God, nothing. So, I mean, now they come to me for advice, but that's okay. But yeah, he's a nice gentleman named Nick, and he's going to bring his fiance, and then we're going to go out with one of our technical experts. So, and then Connor's going to come. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, 6 or 7 of you then.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
That's great. I admitted to a friend the other day, very well, you met them actually, David Evans and his wife Janet. And Janet had her 72nd or 73rd birthday, and she invited 17 ladies in for lunch to her home, and told David to find me and to get lost in a local restaurant and not come home until 5 o'clock. So we had to sit and make sure that we were well looked after ourselves in the restaurant until he was allowed home. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, because one of the things now, as life has unfolded, and I lost Val, and so on, is having big lunches and so on like that, and get-togethers with friends, is one of the things that is missing. and hopefully, once I actually start to go back into London on the odd occasion, is I can recapture that. But I must say, I really do miss it. And every time you tell me that you're going out with a group of friends to a little restaurant in mid-Manhattan, there's a little surge in me that says, stop being jealous.
Well, I mean, I guess, how about making some plans?
Well, you know that one of the things that we would like to do is to come and do this program from New York, and I really should start to think about that, because I think that actually, strangely enough, having worked in the airline industry, is the sort of thing that the airlines would support, because, as you know, the one thing that they've got to that is perishable is a plane seat. The moment that a plane takes off, and if the seat is empty, that's it. They can never make money on it again. So they much rather see a bum in a seat. So we'll have to see whether, in fact, they are tending towards a smaller operation such as us to come to New York. In which case, we will do the whole program from wherever you say we'll do the whole program from.
Well, there's the American Airlines British Airways partnership. Now you have Delta Airlines and Virgin, and now you also have JetBlue coming into Gatwick. So it's a very important gateway. It's a very important route. And so British Airways and American Airlines, they are ridiculous, but they're cutting seats. I guess they want to try to accommodate the business class. Now, let me just say something to the CEO of what is it? IGA? Who
Yes,
took over?
yes,
Right.
the holding company, yeah.
I'm just going to tell you a little something, okay? Business people in first class, they like to save money too, okay? They don't want to be, they don't want to be gouged either, okay? So stop, because they're going to go over to Delta, Virgin, or they're going to go over to JetBlue. Don't think you got it all sewn up, because you haven't. Sorry,
Yeah.
I can afford a first class seat. Do you honestly think that I'm going to want to fork over more money to that idiot at the top? No.
Yeah.
I want to keep it with me. That's why trickle down doesn't work too well. I want to keep it with me so that I can do something else with it. I'm going to get there one way or the other. Same safety, and quite frankly, the service on BA, it's okay. It's not any better than any of the other airlines. It just isn't.
No, that's right. Well, it's gone right downhill from the time that I was involved with this, I have to say. Is JetBlue in strategic alliance with anybody?
No, they're just flying into Gatwick.
Yeah, it's just doing its own thing in Gatwick.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's competition. When there's competition, people, including business class and first class customers, can choose something else.
Yeah.
And they're not stupid. They don't want to pay for new suits for the CEO of IGA. No, I want to buy them for myself. Okay?
Yeah.
Just understand that. So what do you think? You're getting better service, better first class service on BA as opposed to Delta or Virgin? No, you're not. You still have
only so much you can do, isn't there?
So he's been warned here on Mirador. There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's very good advice, and I know that the chairman of IGA watches us every morning. So
yes, he does.
I'm sure he's got the message.
I'm sure he'll act accordingly and lower his prices and stop canceling flights.
Melissa, thanks for joining us. It is now 10:43 with us. What is it with you? 5:43? A 5:45?
It is, yes, it's 5:44.
Right. So. Yeah. So enjoy your meal tonight. I think we'll probably sit and eat a lonely sandwich. But tomorrow, I'm likely to, I think, possibly be taken out to lunch. So I shall thoroughly enjoy that and be back on Monday morning, just bursting at the seams, ready to do exciting things. So we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Good.
Bye, Keith.
Talk to you
Have a
soon.
good day. Bye, UK.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Melissa Conti, our New York, one of our two New York correspondents, and a pretty straight-talking lady, and some of the mistakes that we're making, some of the mistakes they're making, and she's more than willing to actually take a look at things and sort of say, "Hey, why are you doing this, idiots?" I, on the other hand, think that everybody is an idiot in. Everybody's an idiot in Parliament, so I'm not a bit surprised. What I'm going to do now is to take us up to 11 o'clock, is to play episode 8 of our documentary, which means that we've taken actually you through all episodes this week, and we actually will play them again for you over a period of time, so those people who really enjoy the bloody past of a tiny town get a chance to see them again. But here we go. Let's take a look at episode 8, the final episode.
The bloody past of a tiny town. We build this programme as a frolic down Lewis High Street. Me? Frolic? Oh, go on then, I'll give it a try. This street, indeed this town, has a lot of joy about it. If you've been following my epic journey through the town's past, you'll remember the children colourfully parading through the streets in patina. And one of the ladies behind it, Raffaella.
It's called Moving on Parade, and it's something we started 16 years ago. It started from a wish of parents to bring more art into schools because they see how much schools struggle demands of the government, and they wanted to support the school in that. So we started something called Patina, which is Parents and Teachers in the Arts.
Right.
Moving on Parade celebrates the transition from primary to secondary education of all the children in Lewis District Council. So every year we have a theme, and the theme this year is Wonders of Our World. Last year we asked the community to suggest different artists that they would like to see on the parade, and loads of suggestions came in. And we shortlisted the huge list into 16 schools, which was the amount of schools that took part last year. We had Frida Kahlo, and we had Picasso, and we had Van Gogh, and we have Giacometti, and we had Andy Warhol. So they doing illustrations and designs, and then the patina artists take all the children's idea and adapt it into a practical design that the children are actually able to make.
Then the fun and games on the River Ouse, which flows through the town. And the men of the Round Table who almost drown after organising it.
The first few hundred metres are quite torrid, because from the bridges here, people hurl flower bombs and eggs and all sorts of things at you, really. But when you get past Lewis, it's quite peaceful and serene down the river, and you've got the tide to help you along as well. Last year the theme was the Rio Olympics. So again, it was quite open to interpretation. You could just take Brazilian culture or, of course, the Olympics. I actually took part last year. I duly sank in New Haven Harbour, unfortunately. But obviously, we put the proper safety provisions in place, and we were we were fished out before we were swept out into the English Channel. There's been suggestions this year that there will be pirate rafts and people drinking rum and trying to board other people's boats. But we'll see how that happens.
The whole town then takes a trip along the High Street in November, Lewes Bonfire, the largest celebration of burning Guy Fawkes in the world. Then there's the joy of sampling the beers and ales of the town's 16 pubs. After all, there's still plenty to choose from, even though in its heyday, Lewes boasted 63 taverns. And what a contribution I've made, changing my hat 8 times, one for each episode. And I've only changed my trousers twice. But behind all this frivolity, though, there is a very bloody history. Right here on this street, people have been butchered, burned at the stake, and sentenced to death. Strangely, Lewes seems to have escaped the trauma of the Norman invasion. That happened down the road in Hastings. But it didn't take long before the predominant Saxon culture gave way to Norman governance. The castle was built very quickly, growing from a wooden fortress to this relatively small but prominent castle, within a couple of decades or so. Almost as quickly, a Cluniac priory was established. That's a French order of monks, started about 900. The priory eventually towered over the town with a huge abbey, a large campus of buildings for more than 100 monks. And hospitals, infirmaries, and medical herb gardens to boot.
It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access. And it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate. And we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables. And again, this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very much based on the community of Lewes.
The priory became so dominant that servants of the prior and servants of the Lewes sheriff had a ding-dong battle in a local pub. A bit of blood was spilled that day, I suspect. But it was this place of monastic peace and religious calm that saw the first real bloodshed in Lewes. The very thought makes me thirsty. Give me a few minutes to have a pint, and I'll tell you all about it. That's better. And I've changed my hat. Now, where was I? Yes, the Priory. Built by the wife of the Norman lord who governed Lewes. Mrs. de Varenne set about having the Priory built. The boss, King William, wasn't very keen, but William de Varenne was his brother-in-law and fought side by side with him at the Battle of Hastings. So his wife Gundrada had some pull, and she persuaded King William to let her start building the Priory within 10 years of the Normans coming to Britain. And it wasn't until almost 2 centuries later that the calm of the Priory was broken. You say the Battle of Lewes to most people around this country now, they glance at you with vacant eyes. They don't know what it's about. What was it about?
Well, you're right. Most people here don't know, but what happened was Simon de Montfort and his barons were arguing with the king and his men about representation in Parliament, whereas the king, the king just had all of his men and a lot of his French relatives in Parliament, and he was taxing the barons very heavily, and all of this money was going to the French relatives or going abroad, and the barons were not very happy about this.
And it was a pretty bloody war.
It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It's hard to imagine. Lewes is a little place, and on the hills around Lewes, where most of the fighting was, there were tens of thousands of people trying to kill each other, and it was hand-to-hand close combat. And you didn't often die of wounds on the battlefield immediately. You were usually whacked with a broadsword and you would die of internal bleeding, or you would, have limbs severed and die slow death, or you would die death from infection, etc.
So it was the scene of vicious fighting as the army of the barons, led by Simon de Montfort, ran riot through its saintly corridors, chasing the beaten army of King Henry III, putting thousands to the sword and terrifying the monks as they hacked their way into this sacred precinct. Imagine the terror as the soldiers broke through the doors, hacking at everyone in sight, spilling blood, holy or otherwise. Yet out of this pain and bloodshed sprang the first shoots of democracy. Not exactly one man, one vote, but enough to stop the king from calling all the shots. That same battle also prompted the town planners to make crucial changes. Lewes was a walled city, but the barons' men had sliced through it like a knife through butter. So the walls were reinforced, and a barbican was added to the castle. The barbican is the most prominent part of the castle to survive, but the walls, they're long gone. But in their day, they protected many of the institutions that lay within them. The gentle sport of bowls, played to this day as Francis Drake would have played the game. It exists on the old tilting grounds, where knights hacked at one another as part of their military training, and later entertained the ladies by jousting for cash prizes. Cyril Man has doubts about the knights cutting each other to pieces on this bit of soil. But he is certain about the history of the Bowls Club.
It goes way back to medieval times, but so far as we're concerned here, we've been playing here since 1753, and there is some evidence to suggest that in the mid-1600s there was bowls played here. And we're reputed to be the oldest society sporting society in the world. Very unique. Firstly, the woods are unique in that most of them over 100 years old. They're lignum vitae, which is very, very hard wood, and that's the reason, of course, they've survived as long as they have. The jack is biased, which is very unusual, and the green is undulating, very undulating. There's not another green anywhere in this country, so far as we know. And it makes for a very fascinating but unique game, one that we can't play any other club because there aren't any that play like this.
St Michael's Church, almost as old as the Priory, survived. Then there was the day the French marauders tricked the prior into rushing down to Rottingdean with his army, only to double back, sail up the River Ouse and attack the Priory. Rebuffed by a few English bowmen, the frustrated French turned their attention to the town and turned it over. Then there was the Peasants' Revolt. The peasants raged across Britain, looting and burning, and they broke into Lewes Castle, but only pinched a few barrels of wine. The streets ran red all right, but this time it was wine, not blood. More seriously, Queen Mary I offered far more bloodshed. She had 17 martyrs burned at the stake for refusing to revert to Roman Catholicism. That, of course, has given rise to the biggest bonfire celebrations in the world. One Lewes citizen, though, lit perhaps the biggest bonfire of all. Tom Paine developed his anti-monarchist, anti-establishment ideas here. Then he buzzed off to America and lit the torch that saw our colonies become an independent state. Certainly, the gallows played a long and major part in the history of Lewes. At Gallows Bank, the hangman's noose and the stocks were used until the late 19th century for public punishment. The Crown Court and the prison have both seen some of the most horrendous criminals appear before it. Especially John Haig, the acid bath murderer, who a jury took just 17 minutes to convict. And who can forget a cheeky Mick Jagger ordering a takeaway from the White Hart while languishing in the prison cells? The White Hart stands like a beacon in the centre of the High Street. It was once a great coaching inn, and even today remains the centre of the town's social life. The hotel is called the Cradle of Democracy and proudly displays an original copy of the American Declaration of Independence on its walls. After all, dear old Tom Paine did a lot of thinking there, usually propping up the bar.
It seemed that he used to like to spend his social hours here and his active political discussion times here in volatile discussion with a group which I believe we thought was called the Headstrong Club, because it still meets today and they call it the Headstrong Club today, but I gather from a local historian that it was called the White Hart Dining Club. Oh. And Thomas Paine, up in our sheriff's room, the oak-panelled function room, basically plotted the American Revolution and for a struggle for independence, which resulted in the final Declaration of Independence, an authenticated copy of which we have in the sheriff's room, and he was credited with originating that. And in turn, he dubbed the White Hart Hotel as the cradle of American independence.
The hotel was host to a meeting between the Russian ambassador and a British foreign secretary in 1929. The meeting led to the resumption of diplomatic relations between Britain and Russia for the first time since 1856. And its cellar held 7 of the martyrs before they were led to their deaths at the stake. But some of the mayhem wasn't man-contrived. The plague, the Black Death, hit Lewes 3 separate times during its history. On one occasion, completely wiping out the village of Hamsey, just upstream from Lewes. Leprosy also had a devastating effect, with lepers banned from public places and forced to take communion through a so-called leper's slit. The Prince Regent frolicked through Lewes regularly. His buddies came from here, and speculation has it that he was challenged to drive a coach and four down this road, Keir Street. I have enough problems getting up Keir Street on my own two legs. And for that matter, getting down it as well. There are many other incidents that have occurred in Lewes. A disastrous Canadian raid on Dieppe in World War II started out from New Haven at the mouth of the Ouse, while Lewes itself took the brunt of many German bombing raids. And through it all, a constant from 1790 stood proudly on the riverbanks. Harvey's Brewery, the key industry of the town. The bloody high street of a tiny town. Now peaceful and calm.
Sure you can understand what I'm saying. That's it for this Friday. We will see you on Monday morning. We'll look forward to that with another potpourri of what's going on, what's happening, and a little bit of history of our town thrown in. Thank you for being with us. It is now 7 minutes past 11 o'clock on the 7th day of October 2022. Not a bad day outside, but watch out. There is some water from the heavens on the way. Till Monday morning, let me say to you, toodle pip, and off we go into the wild blue yonder, I think. So why not? Why not indeed? Bye.